Well, hello everyone. We are so excited about this new day and our podcast. So, wherever you're listening from, whether it's morning, noon, nighttime, we say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. And so excited that you could be here with us. I just want to tell you a little bit about the podcast, so Wade Turner Podcast. Our mission, Motivated to Purpose, Way podcast is a transformative podcast that is dedicated to coaching, dedicated to counseling, and motivating individuals to reach their full potential. And so I am so excited about having Minister Angela Bill here with us today. I just want to tell you a little bit about her before we give her opportunity to talk. Angela is the founder and CEO of God's Messenger of Victorious People. And it is a 501c3 and it's dedicated to providing food, providing clothing, providing personal hygiene, support, training, and resources to our undersheltered population. And prior to Angela's, and we're going to hear all about how Angela got here, so I'm so excited about sharing that with you all. I had a chance to hear that myself, and so excited about sharing that. But prior to this vision in which God had given her, she worked as the Director of Administration for the U.S. Army, as the clinical pastoral education within the clinical pastoral education training program. Excuse me, I'm so excited that my words are getting all jumbled here today. Angela also served as a nutrition care specialist in the Army, and she is a retired veteran. So we thank her so much for her service that she has given to our nation and the world. Angela has served in many ministerial capacities and roles to include chaplain resident at the Baptist Health System. And so, in addition to that, with all of those wonderful things that she has done, she holds a Master's of Divinity and she also holds a Master's of Christian Ministry degree. And so, excited to hear about that because I was like, oh my goodness, that's something we have in common there too. One of our degrees. So excited to have you here today, Angela. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that welcome. Thank you for having us on this podcast. We definitely appreciate it and just love you and love your ministry and love what you're doing for the people of God.
Well, thank you. And so we are so excited. And when we were talking, you shared with me from wholeness, wholeness from homelessness. You shared that with me. And so that just kind of stuck with me. And so, yeah, I was like, that's going to be on your podcast, moving to wholeness from homelessness. And so want to really delve into that. But first question, can you tell the audience, tell them about your story and the reason you chose this ministry to serve the undersheltered or unsheltered?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, I was originally born in Detroit, Michigan. I was born in the 70s. So you can imagine still in that era of racial, inequality and things like that. I was born to a interracial couple. My mom was Black. My dad my mom was white. My dad was Black. 6 children, second oldest of those children. And we grew up in poverty. We didn't have food many times, didn't have, places to live. We really had a hard time. And in that, I experienced a lot of abuse, mental, emotionally, and physically at the hands of my mom. So I grew up feeling like I was not loved. I grew up feeling like I didn't have a purpose. I had no identity. I really didn't know who I was. I knew that my father loved me because according to my family, I was his pet, but I didn't understand love in the full capacity because I was looking for it from my mom. As a daughter, you grow up, you're looking and want to be loved by your mother. You almost emulate them as your role model. And here it is. I'm experiencing this abuse at the hand of my mother, the one that's supposed to love me. And so growing up, I really didn't know my identity. And in that process, as we moved from home to home, I lost connections with my friends and the children that I grew up with. And so it developed a sense of abandonment and a sense of loneliness and a sense of like, what is my worth? You know, if my mom doesn't love me, my dad's finally here. My brothers and sisters don't really like me because my mom doesn't like me. I'm losing my friends, I'm losing connection to the world. What is my purpose here? And so in that, at a very young age, I experienced suicidal ideation. I experienced attempting to, to kill myself. And it was at the age of 9 from my father letting us know about God that I came to the realization of I am loved. I am cared for. But I'm 9, so you don't really know the fullness of what that means to be loved. You don't know the fullness of what God's word means. And so I'm still experiencing, physical abuse. I grow up, I enter into the military, and that system just continues for my life. With every man that I encountered, every person that I experienced, the feelings of abandonment, being left and disconnected and not being treated the way that I felt like I should. And so it just brought on this sense of no worth, no worth,
I
you
want
know?
to I I hear so much, so much, but I want to go back a little bit. I know you given us some of the after military life, but I want to go back a little bit because I thought, what you said was so powerful in wanting your mother's acceptance and wanting that connection with your mom and not feeling that connection with her and not being able to really embrace an identity at that point because yes, she's the model and obviously she's rejecting of you and it's like, okay, well, who am I? What do I? And I heard the self-worth in that and then feeling abandoned as well. And it sounds like, you were talking more so about your mom. Tell us about, because you talked to me about being homeless or coming to the realization that that was happening. Can you tell us a little bit more about that place or coming to that realization?
Yeah, definitely. So as I was saying, just really trying to identify who I was. And so after my divorce, and I was also going through the process of retiring, and I came to the realization, I said, you know what, God, I served 20 years in the military for my country. Now I want to serve you. And so in that process, he allowed me to become the administrator for the clinical pastoral education. And part of that program was being able to start unpacking your history, unpacking your family story, unpacking your lineage to identify what are your hang-ups and hook, things like that, things of how you develop and why you think like you think and also some of the triggers. And so as I was unpacking that story, it brought me back to a memory of my father bringing in homeless people into our house. And I'm after I just got finished cooking and cleaning up for our own family, he brings these unsheltered people into my home, and I'm upset because I'm like, why he keeps bringing these homeless people to live with us, and we got to feed them, and I got to cook and clean after them. And in that revelation, I started unpacking our own story, realizing that in that poverty, each time we moved, we were squatters. We didn't actually own a home. We lived in other people's homes in secrecies until someone report us to the police. And so then the police will come and make us move. So in that revelation, I come to realize those experiences that I was going through as a child was leading me to my full purpose of understanding what it looks like to come from homelessness, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally to develop into this space of now this wholeness that God has allowed me to reveal to arrive to.
Yes.
And so it was really just being able to see that whole narrative of my life and say, I know the experience of abandonment. I know the experience of loneliness. I know the experience of being put and set aside. I know the experience of what it feels like not to feel loved. How can I now, through the revelation that God gave me, give that back to others that are oftentimes set aside and overlooked because of what people believe about them?
Right. Yeah, that's so good. That's so good because let me tell you, after listening to you, and you, of course, we had our pre-time of talking, but after listening to you, I began to think back to my childhood and recognizing, in those times that hey, we were homeless, right? If we were living with, if we were at a place and we were evicted and we didn't
Yeah.
have anywhere to go and we were at a
Yes.
relative's house, we were literally homeless for those periods of time. And so and then I thought back and I want you to see if you can identify with this or even speak to it. I remember changing schools frequently
Mhm.
and needing to make new friends and finding it difficult to make new friends because and then you don't have the same friends that you've had because you move so frequently that you almost expect to change friends. So those relationships, can you identify with that? And if you can you speak to that as well?
Definitely can understand that. And there was such a heartbreak in that because when you connect with someone outside of your home that you're finally finding love, you're finding a place, you're finding a someone that's caring for you, and then that's ripped away from you.
Yeah.
And it's ripped away every time. And so now you're in this place where I'm not feeling love. And when I find the potential of love, it's ripped away, not because of my own, things that I'm doing, but because of someone else control over me, ripping me out of that space. And it is such a sense of sadness because it does make you feel like, man, when am I going to find my people? And then when you find your people and that's snatched away, it's like I'm not going to connect with anyone else because of that heartbreak of losing that person again. And the only blessing that I had in that moment was my brother Harold. He became my best friend, and so we began doing everything together, so much so that I started making sure that I never connected with anyone else because I didn't want to feel that pain again.
Wow, wow. That and so and being able to share that with people, right? Because we can grow up and we can maintain that status where we don't connect with people because I fear that there's going to be maybe a sense of abandonment. Maybe I feel abandoned, or because we lost, or it's just an intense grief that you get to re-experience over and over from the losses that you've had
Yeah.
in life. And
Yes.
yeah, and I think also too, I think, and it makes it difficult, as little people, you're trying to develop these skills of even making friends and communicating and then when these things are ripped away from you, it's like, okay, I got to start all over again with just my process of being communicative, right?
Right.
And just the challenge of that. Oh
Yeah.
my God, so robust. Tell us, I know you told us about this self-discovery. Now you were talking, and I want to go back to what you were sharing because you started talking about, growing up and then joining the military and then relationships that you were having. And so can you go back there and talk to us about that?
Yeah, definitely. And it really kind of unfolds on how my identity kind of involved is, I was an interracial child. And so I was not accepted by the Caucasians because I was Black. And I wasn't accepted by the Blacks because I was too light. And so it was this sense of like, well, who am I and what type of relationships? And as you were saying, it was this impact where I started having those challenges with being able to make those connections and being able to have those relationships. And then the relationships that I did forge, they weren't good for me. They were really emulating where I came from. They were emulating me seeking for love in all the wrong places and finding myself in more spaces of abuse and abandonment and loneliness because of the fact that I didn't understand who I was. I didn't understand how I deserved love. I was seeking for it in every place, but was finding not love because of the environment that I came from. And so it ultimately started developing my own identity that I had to kind of give myself over to others and was rendering myself to their love until one day someone told me, she said, you don't have to accept that. It was a powerful, profound thought that came to my mind to say, I don't have to accept this relationship. I don't have to accept this experience. I don't have to continue to subject myself to these particular types of friends or men. I can choose. And when I started understanding that choice, it was like I could say, I'm good enough. And
Yes.
I don't, I can walk away from this because it's not helpful for me. I can walk away from this person who isn't loving me and it's going to be okay. And I think the beauty of that, of coming to that identification of the abandonment, I no longer felt that abandonment because I knew that the things that I was leaving wasn't beneficial for my life. And the things that were staying was what was equipping me and empowering me to get to that place of wholeness.
Yes. As you were talking, and I heard the empowerment in that, and it sounds like it was like, wow, this is revelatory, right? That
Yes, yes,
I don't have to accept this, right? Yeah, and you know what? It connected because I remember you were talking a short while ago about being introduced to God by your father, right? Oh
yes,
my goodness,
yes,
that's just powerful. And just saying it, being introduced to God by
yes,
your father, and it sounds like it kind of meshes right with this revelation of, hey, you don't have to accept this place. And and how powerful that is in overcoming abandonment, right?
yes,
Because it's
yes,
not about waiting for somebody to leave you. You get to
yes,
leave the situation if it's not
yes.
beneficial to you. Oh, that is so robust and so powerful. And I just want to plug that to our listeners because if you are waiting on somebody to leave you and you don't give yourself a choice in the matter or in the relationship or in the situation, then yeah, you set yourself up for the abandonment. But if you can make the choice, right, and
That's
recognize that you don't have to accept whatever
right.
this is, then you can make a choice to get out of whatever that situation is.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's so much about walking away from abandonment or from that bad relationship to what? And the key is there's this sense of fear that that loneliness is going to be greater than the experience I'm going through. But when you come to that realization, that fear is just something trying to keep you in that state.
Yes.
But you'll never know the beauty of what's on the other side of that until you actually take the step toward it.
Yes, 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 yes. And that sounds like just really good words of wisdom for the audience to be able to have that courage to, if it's like, if this isn't what I want in my life, then to be courageous enough and recognize and you said this earlier, feeling like you didn't have worth, but
Mhm.
recognizing that you are worthy enough to have something else, that you have an opportunity to have something else. Oh my goodness. So tell me, I want to give you another opportunity. Just speak to our listeners, our audience, and just give them some words of wisdom about, some similarities to things that you've experienced and how you think you can encourage them or help them.
Greatest thing that I've learned was my being able to establish that relationship, that firm relationship with God. Many times I know from my experience throughout my journey, my spiritual journey, I came into a lot of interpretations of who God was. But when I came to realize that everybody else's interpretation of him was only masked to keep me into this control or to this box or even put God in the box, but when I developed that personal relationship with God, He began to reveal to me who He was in my life, which then began to reveal to me who I was in this life. which then led me to the purpose of my life for this life. And so if that whole rediscovery of who I am, looking back, saying, what brought me to this place, brought me to this revelation of my purpose. And I believe sometimes when we take a look at our past and we identify the struggles and the challenges and the situations that we were in, they were intended for a purpose. They were intended to move us toward our purpose. And so if you could just take a look at your past and think about all the experiences that you went through and then journey forward to the growth and the learning and the empowerment and the revelation that we encounter as we grow, will I start beginning to identify what is God wanting me to do in this world and how I can give back to the world.
Yes. So I heard in that, and just recognizing how important our past is and to our purpose, and then also the passions, right? The passions you develop out of your past that align themselves with a purpose for our lives. Um, that is so good. And you were um just the gifting of God to be able to give you the spaces where you can gain this revelation, gain this understanding, and knowing that God can trust you with it, and and to trust that you will tell your story.
Right.
Yeah, trusting that you will tell your story to be able
Yeah.
to help someone else. Because it's so powerful. It's such a powerful story. You shared with me that you remember you shared feeling shame about
Mhm.
your story. Can you talk to our listeners about overcoming that place of shame?
Yeah, definitely. The shame came on because I didn't want people to know I was abused as a child. I didn't want people to know I was sexually abused as a child. I didn't want people to know that I went through a divorce. I didn't want people to know that I was a single parent. I didn't want people to know that I had two different uh baby daddies. All of these things that just brought on this level of shame. But it was being able to step back and grow from that, to be able to identify that um that doesn't have to be my story. That doesn't have to be my story. That's a part of my story, but it's not the end all. It's not where I stop. It's just a page in my book. But there was an opportunity for me to turn the page, to start a new chapter. And I was able to start a new chapter, to realize that shame no longer has control over me. It no longer can keep me bound. I control where I stop and where I move. The shame does it. And so coming to that revelation that is, like you just said, that's part of my story. That's part of my testimony. It's not to keep me stuck. It's to empower me to be able to help someone else, to say, it's okay if you have a couple of baby daddies. Now choose a new path and not have more baby daddies. And that was something I did for myself. And so it's about taking those stories and that shame and bottling it up and taking control of it and saying, I don't have to be stuck there. It's something I can use as a stepping stone to move forward, to unfold a new story about who I am.
Yeah. Yes. I heard, developing recognizing, hey, that was a chapter. That was a
Mhm.
chapter, a point in time in my life. And what can I learn from that chapter so I don't have to repeat that chapter again? And then I can forge ahead and make the book, make
Yes,
the book what God intended the book to look like, right? Because of
right.
course He's
That's right.
leading us to be a part of that free will of moving our
Yeah.
book ahead and really walking out the remaining chapters. Mm, real. Oh my goodness. I am so in awe and it's almost speechless to some degree. I just want to sit here. I want to be a part of the audience more. And because I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so powerful, Angela. Such a powerful message to people who have experienced various things in their lives, right? And some of them may have not experienced exactly what you've experienced, but they can still identify with your experiences because of just the passion and the genuineness and the authenticity of sharing your story. Um, you talked about stereotypes as it pertains to the homeless population. Can you tell our audience what stereotypes you would like to unravel?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. There's so many. And I think the biggest key is to that I've come to is realizing that not every person that's unsheltered want to be homeless. They are all coming from a story just like mine's, where there was trauma, there was tribulations, there was challenges that they didn't know how to overcome. And so the whole thing is being able to realize that some people that are living on the street don't just need a handout, but they need a hand up. And I thank God that I had a hand up out of my hurt, a hand up out of my pain, a hand up out of my sorrow because of him. And so the unsheltered want to be able to get off the street. But if they don't have an ID card, they don't have a birth certificate, they don't have a social security card, as you know, they can't get a job. And they can't get a job and they can't get those ID identification reestablished without having a home to send it to. And
Yes.
so I want people to start realizing, yes, there are some people that want to be homeless and they're doing some scamming things and all of that. But that is not the case for everyone. Just like it's not the case that as people like the stereotype, all black people like chicken and all black people, all white people are racist. That is not the case for everyone. And if we could come to the realization that that story is not the same for every person, and if we could reach out to the ones that are ready to get off the street, which is what our mission is helping and journeying with them and helping them overcome those barriers. That is the mindset I want to give to the world, is to say, yeah, we have some bad apples, and that's across the world, but we have a bunch of good ones that just need a hand up. How about we come together and be that hand up so that they can be empowered to know their story can be transformed to their glory and
Yeah.
to God's glory.
Yes. Am similar to you working with the underhoused population. I can so identify with that, and I think just from a humanity standpoint, right, to be able to see individuals, whether, culturally, ethnicity, um, whatever the difference is, to be able to see people as just individuals and humans and treat them as such, as individuals and humans, and recognizing the things that people are needing, or again, like you said, their stories, what has brought people to the place where they are. Because if we don't start out well, then yeah, there are probably going to be a lot of bumps along the way
That's it.
if we don't
That's it.
start out well. And
Right.
sometimes, even if we start out well, there's still going to be some bumps along the way.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
being able to really see people as individuals and having that level of compassion and care for the individual. I think
Yes.
that's so powerful, in us breaking those biases, those discriminations, areas of discrimination, regardless of what we're discriminating against. And to be able
Right.
to speak positive, oh my goodness, to be
Yeah.
able to speak positive and to be able to speak life to people who have experienced some tragedies in their lives.
Yeah.
And so I think that is so good. Can you tell our listeners how they can help God's messenger of victorious people? How can they help the
Yeah.
organization?
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to start off asking you to pray for us because we have taken on a huge undertaking of this mission in support of our unsheltered brothers and sisters. And many of resources have come on board to try to do the same thing. We are hopeful that you would just pray for us for our strength as we're doing this. And then pray to God and seek and ask him if that is your heart to come be a part of us, please join us. 581 Spencer Lane. That's where we're located. We have a resource center. We have a clothing and food pantry. We have an opportunity for you to come in and serve with our personal hygiene bags or passing out the food or being one of our sponsors. That is a person that comes along with our unsheltered brothers and sisters and helps to journey with them through their barriers and then continue to encourage them not to get, to be able to get off the street and overcome those barriers. And if you can't serve and you don't have that much time, we ask that you also support us monetarily. We've spent, lots of money for personal hygienes and the food that we're serving out. And of course that costs. And it's something that my husband and I have been funding out of our own pockets for the last 3.5 years, our retirement checks and things like that. So monetary resources are always helpful, or you could just donate travel size personal hygiene items or individually personalized food items, non-perishable food items. Those are the ways that our community can get involved and help us to be able to continue to impact and to help the unsheltered grow from homelessness to wholeness.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, listeners, as you've heard, there are so many different ways that you can contribute to the organization. So I'm going to encourage you to make your contribution. And you'll see the information that's posted here. I so encourage you to reach out in one form or another in order to contribute to this population. And you don't know who you're serving. You just don't know who you're serving. And so please reach out via volunteering, via just a monetary donation to the organization, via your time. They are a 501c3, so you already know that you can have your tax exemption for whatever the contribution that you make to the organization. Angela, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for being so transparent and sharing your story with our audience. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. So if you are listening out there, Angela has shared with us just some amazing points as it pertains to just her own life and the trauma that she's experienced in her own life, and coming from homelessness to wholeness and overcoming the trauma, having her testimony, being able to share her testimony with the audience, being able to share her testimony, I'm sure, even with those whom she served. Recognizing that you find your purpose in those times of trying, those times of testing, sometimes those times of trauma, your purpose is found or even birthed through those places. And coming from, that abandonment to becoming empowered and being able to make your own choices with life. She said that so eloquently. And then recognizing that this chapter in your life, that this is not the final. This is not the final chapter. You're still here. So there are some new chapters, and I would say even some happy endings to
Yes.
upcoming chapters of your life. And so I encourage you to continue your journey, even if you are in the midst of trying to figure out what's going on. Maybe you're experiencing some anxiety, some depression, or even some suicidal ideation, as Angela shared. Recognizing this is not the end, and to be able to ground yourself, find yourself in a place of worship, in order to be able to come to a relationship with God. And if you have a relationship with God now and you're still struggling with those, finding someone that could be a help to you, a resource to you. Maybe it's a therapist, maybe it's a Christian counselor within your church. whatever it is, someone that is going to be able to help you. And I so encourage you, it is not your family, it is not your friends, it is someone that is a third party that can give you some really good guidance and some really good direction regarding your life. And so encourage you to do that as well, listeners. Again, please reach out to Angela. Please reach out to her in order to make your contributions and whatever that needs to look like. And as she said, pray for them first. Pray for how God wants you to be served. You know, how he wants to use you as it pertains to the mission and the ministry. And then listeners, I encourage you so much to subscribe, leave your reviews, and also share the podcast with others. And maybe there's someone that who is you seeing they're down, they're kind of down right now, and they need this encouraging word, or someone that is going through a place of homelessness and they need this encouraging word. I so encourage you to share this with them. Thank you so much, listeners, for joining us today. We will see you soon. God bless.